have you ever been on a date and someone's like Stephen the whole day, and then
So I've been on dates where they ask like late into the date, and I'm imagining that they're like saying my name to themselves the wrong way, like they're like Stephen this, Stephen that, but they're saying it to themselves, and then like eventually they're like, oh, but by the way, like, is it Stephen or Stephan? I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, it's Stephan. My whole life has been Stephen or Stephan. Well, then they'll go Stephan too, which it's closer.
Yeah, I know. We have another friend named Stephan, and Matt, was it you who was calling him Stephan?
I might have been.
Yeah, it might have been.
It's an honest mistake.
Honestly,
I don't remember who it was.
Stephan is the same for me as like
It's
Leah and Leia. Like I have a friend who spells her name Leigha, and I can never remember if she goes by Leah or Leia. And so I interchangeably use them until one day, and I've known her for like 2 years, and I just keep like saying Leah, and like I'm just waiting for her to correct me, and she's never corrected me. So you just gotta remind people like it's pronounced this way.
Yeah. No, for sure. I despite having to deal with that, I've never really like been that aggressive about it.
Stephan, though. I call him Stephan all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more intentional though.
Yeah. A lot of people call me Illick. I'm just kidding. You're like, what? Really? Well, now that we know your name's Stephan, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude, of course.
This is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm actually, so I'm really stoked about this episode for a number of reasons. One, you're like one of the first guests that we have on here.
Fantastic.
You know, obviously just launched a show like little less than a week ago and announced it. So stoked to have you on, dude.
I'm super excited for you to start a show. I mean, you know, to have your own show, to express yourself, to talk about people and things that you like, that's important.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm super pumped about it, man.
Cool.
So for those of you who are listening and also watching, just to kind of lay it out, we're going to do this every episode, just kind of say what it's about, what we're doing. But the show's called 8 Ounce, and it's a podcast that revolves around having conversations over an 8-ounce cup of coffee with friends. So we're going to be talking about anything from like life to creativity to just like silly little things, you know, what it's like to be a barista or a creative living in a city. Luckily, you do kind of all of them. I've been really stoked to have you on the show because I was thinking about it and I was like, you're a pretty like complex person. Like I feel like when I first met you, I had like an idea about you and like kind of like what you did and then I just found out more and more and more and I was just like, oh, like what? Like you also do that. So I'm really stoked to have you on.
Sweet, dude.
If you want to give yourself kind of an introduction, tell us like, you know, what you do.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Go for
it.
I
mean, I was born and raised in Florida. I'm a Greek person. I'm of Greek heritage, 100% Greek. I've got Greek ancestry. Both immigrants and people, you know, obviously parents and grandparents were born in the United States.
Yeah.
So that's an important part of my life, you know, and then being in Astoria now as an adult, I didn't grow up here. It definitely reconnects me with my grandfather's side, you know, with him coming to New York as an immigrant in 1960.
Wow.
He came here with nothing, right? Wow. The whole story.
Did he come to Astoria?
He came to Astoria.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important to me to be in Astoria. My sister's also here in Astoria. Yeah. And she has her own connection and network in Astoria, which is blowing up for her in the last
what is
years.
it again that she does?
So yeah, she's an entrepreneur. She started a Greek fashion import business and jewelry, and she has a store on 31st Street.
Sick, here in Astoria. What's it called again?
Hellenic Aesthetic. Yeah, it's super cool.
We'll show a little photo for
everyone. Should definitely check it out.
We have a funny story about that real quick.
Yeah, dude, go for it.
Do you remember when, like, what was it, a few weeks ago, where I was like,
oh yeah,
so
go for it.
We know each other through the coffee shop that I work at, and he always comes in with his sister, and literally you came without her once, and I was like, where's your lady, man? And you were like, oh, like, no, that's my sister. And I was like, oh no, I felt so bad.
This happens all the time, dude. So my sister and I travel a lot together. We're both single.
Yeah.
And just from incidentally being like two young, attractive people, right? That don't really look alike. My sister and I really don't. We don't favor.
I never thought you guys looked like siblings.
And so feature-wise, skin tone-wise, or anything. So it's just assumed like, oh, it's a couple. Like, just, you know, whether we're in Greece and people are asking us like, oh, how long you've been together? Like, we're like, dude, like, my sister.
Do you find that like when you're like out and you're like trying to kind of like
yes, for sure. So for both of us, we've kind of like realized it's a bit of an impediment to us not being single. You know, again, I mean, my sister and I have a great relationship as we're friends, you know, and we started this coffee business together, you know,
I didn't realize
co-founded it together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she has her own business, obviously, with her Greek fashion imports and jewelry designing and all that. And I was pushing forward to start a coffee company. And
wow.
Yeah, she has a lot of prowess in marketing and creativity. And again, her whole entire business speaks for itself. But it was something I really was pushing forward, wanted to do. And I knew that I wanted to have her a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
She loves coffee as much as I do.
So cool.
As well.
Yeah. And that's another reason I forgot to share why I'm really stoked to have you on. So like with this podcast, we're going to feature a new roaster every episode, which I'm really excited about. But it'll probably be pretty rare that I feature someone who like roasted the coffee or like
the coffee in this bag. I actually roasted.
That's awesome. Exactly. Yeah, so like to have someone on the podcast who actually not recorded, who actually roasted their coffee, like is pretty exciting. So tell us a little bit about this Rise with Apollo. This is your coffee. This is Ethiopia. And without further ado, let me pour us some coffee.
Sure.
In these cups.
Yeah. So Rise with Apollo. Again, I was like, look, I want to start a coffee company. Coffee is a passion. And I knew I wanted to express again this Greek heritage that's very important to us. To myself, my family, my sister.
Cheers.
And cheers, man. 8 ounce.
8 ounce, bro.
Yeah.
Nice. So,
yeah, the coffee thing was kind of like, okay, let's think about what we can do with coffee. Like, how can we incorporate being Greek and also, a creative side, a more hip side, a more like kind of modern side to coffee. A lot of coffee brands are, in my opinion, they just sort of market themselves a little blandly. And
totally.
And I wanted a brand that matched what was in the bag.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the vibe. And so how do we incorporate like this Greek aesthetic, this Mediterranean centric aesthetic?
And you can tell on the bag too, because all over this bag, there's like, details. I love these little like photos that you have here in the background, and then like even the font and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, yeah, you can totally see that like that vision come to life in this coffee.
And bag. Even the bottom too. You check the bottom of the bag. We've got
that's
a little ode to Apollo himself with a statue there.
Yeah.
And just playing on the cartoony vintage again, more Mediterranean. We didn't want it to be only Greek, despite obviously the Greek god of Apollo being centric in the branding.
Yeah.
But then the sun, right? This ritual of every morning, the sun rises. You get up, right? There's a ritual behind making a cup of coffee. It warms you up. It wakes you up. The sun warms you up. It wakes you up, right?
Yeah.
So there is this play on, the sun providing the means for life.
Yeah.
Right. And whether it's something growing out of the ground or ourselves growing and seeing the sun every day is a blessing, right?
Yeah.
So incorporating that into the bag and the branding and it being the ethos of the brand was important.
Sick.
Now that was easy, right? But then actually coming up with like the graphics and
I was about to ask,
colors, right? Yeah, I mean, we knew we didn't want it to be Apollo coffee, so we wanted to kind of have like again this implying the action, right? The rising with Apollo, like you're a part of it, right?
Yeah.
And again, that morning ritual. And then ritual playing with, sacrificing to the gods, right? A little bit of mythology, right? A little bit of play on mythology from Greek heritage.
And that's why we're going to sacrifice Joel on this podcast.
Right. Someone's got to be the one. So we were like, okay, rise with Apollo. That's cool. Like, again, this is sort of activity that you're doing in the morning. Because people make coffee sort of blindly almost, right?
Totally.
And then incorporating a good coffee with it, right? Bright coffee, full profiled, acidic, fruitier coffees, and then working with a roasting here in New York City, down the street from where you could literally walk there in 5 minutes.
So
it's
cool.
Long Island City, and it's a co-op roaster, and I've known him for a couple of years, and it was like a perfect sort of like every box was checked, but creating the branding, hiring a graphic designer, and trying to translate what our vision onto the package. Yeah. That was a journey in itself. It took months.
Yeah, I bet.
It did.
I bet.
We could have just slapped a name on there and been done with it. But
yeah, it's cool too because I used to do like a lot of branding for a coffee shop and stuff, and I was like kind of about to do new like retail boxes for them and coffee bags and all that kind of stuff. And a lot does go into it. A lot of like, it's like, oh, this isn't just like temporary. This is what like is us.
You would hope so, right? You would definitely hope that a brand wants to show themselves in this kind of way.
Yeah.
I certainly would hope so.
Yeah.
That it's not just, there's no really thought put into it. To me, the entire branding is like the emotion of seeing the bag and then tasting the coffee.
Yeah,
totally. They go together.
Yeah, completely. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah,
it is exciting too, because it's like once you finally like find that look that you're going for, and it actually is like comes to life, it's so exciting because it is daunting, you know, to like it. I feel like very few people understand this, but when you're actually like putting work into something, and it's like you're like working towards that final product, there's so much more like anger and like impatience that goes into it, because you're like, oh, like I just want it to look good, and once you're actually working on it, you're like, oh, like
that's the creative process, man.
Definitely.
You know, it's more than the sum of its parts, right? The idea of, you know, taking the risk to start something, to express yourself, to put yourself out there. It's never been easier to put yourself out there if you want to, but it's also never been more judgmental. Like you're literally risking people being, you know, haters or attacking you or canceling you, whatever, right? I mean, it could be a variety of things that you may be afraid of. You know, so many people die never hearing the sound of their own voice, right? And that's not me saying that. I heard that. I thought it was a great quote, because expressing yourself is important, and every human has the right to express themselves, and whatever medium that is, right? So yeah, it is more than the sum of its parts, and for my sister and I. And then working together on it too, right? It's not just about me or her, it's a family thing. And then we try to attach that, we try to bring that back to the farms of the people who are actually growing the coffee, and looking at family farms, and whether it's in Honduras or in Kenya or Ethiopia, you know, family people that are spending their lives, you know, buying back land that they had sold or whatever. There's a history of farm ownership, and really trying to bring those people, you know, some good business from the U.S.
Yeah, I love that. It tastes really great, by the way.
Appreciate it.
This is Ethiopia, right?
Ethiopia, and it's organic, which we're not after organic or not for organic. It just, you know, it's great if it is.
Yeah. Where can people find your coffee?
risewithapollo.com.
Sick.
We do have a cool Instagram.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. Their Instagram's really sick. I love the
branding.
Yeah, the branding's awesome.
Yeah, again, you know, and I approached my sister with this idea of like, hey, let's do something cool with coffee. So her creativity works different than mine for sure, and she's has an excellent creative track record. So one day she comes up to me, I don't know, it was like a month after I'd sort of recommended we look into doing this. And I was looking at coffees. I was kind of being a little more analytical about it. Like, where do I want to buy coffee from? How do I even buy coffee? Where is it? You know, what do I do with it once I get it? Right. All of a sudden she shows me like the saved Instagram profile that she had saved all these posts, right, of things she was finding, right, Pinterest posts. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is beautiful. This is perfect. I mean, it just struck me so well. It was blues and oranges, and it was beaches and people in summer. I was just like, all right, this is the brand, like, for sure.
That's cool.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's tight. Yeah, I was looking at the Instagram. We'll show a few pictures on the video if you're watching this podcast through watching the video. But yeah, I was just kind of like looking through your guys' feed, and I like love the vibe that you guys are going for. It's really cool.
Thanks.
How long has this coffee company been a thing? Like, how long have you guys been doing this?
A year. We started.
Really?
So, well, I mean, the beginning of the project was a year ago.
Okay, so it's still pretty new.
It's very new. We launched officially on March 31st of 2023. That was when you could buy a bag. Okay. And we had a party at her store. Yeah. You know, and people came, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of our friends, you know, the crazy thing, I mean, once you leave the coffee world, right? Like once you leave like the people who go to cool coffee shops and that are involved in the process, there's a lot of people that are just like, oh, I just buy random coffee and I drink it. Like, I don't think about it like people think of wine, or people think of even beer, right? There's all these craft breweries, or there's all these wineries, right? People are like, yeah, it's just brown coffee, and I just drink it. Right? It's just caffeine, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, a lot of my friends are like, dude, I had no idea coffee could taste different. Yeah, like, it was like, there's like something put into this that's intentional. Yeah. And so many hands have touched it, right? From the beginning of it being in Honduras, right? And then it being cultivated, you know, ethically and methodically, right? Picking ripe cherries, not unripe cherries, and then washing them and all these things, right? And then getting it to the United States, and then roasting it. Yeah. Right? Finding out how to roast it, figure out how to roast it, because that's a whole nother process.
Totally. It's so funny. I remember forever ago, because I've worked in coffee for like almost like 8 years or so, maybe longer. Jeez, yeah. And it's just funny because, you know, like I've worked at a few cafes where we offer pour overs, but then we also offer like filter coffee and stuff. And it's funny, like the comments you hear people say, because it's just like, I've heard so many people be like I'm like, oh, what coffee do you want, this one or this one? And they're always like, it doesn't matter, they all taste the same, like all coffee tastes the same. I'm like, That is so not true.
So not true.
So not true in so many levels. And it's funny you said that about your friends, like being like, oh, I didn't realize coffee could taste as good. Because I feel like I always end up being that friend. I feel like I always end up being the guy who like I have a lot of friends who like start off not really liking coffee, and I'm like, I'm gonna get you drinking black coffee. Like you're gonna love it. Our old roommate Chandler, he I feel like he never drank coffee, and like slowly over time we kind of just like gave him more like pour overs, and like me and Matt, who's also here in the room, would like we would make our morning pour overs and give Chandler some and be like, here, like drink some. Right. But it's funny because you kind of see these people who like go from like not drinking coffee at all to being like, do you know what? Instead of a vanilla latte, I'll take an oat cappuccino. Oh, you know, and then they make it even like they go even a little like further down. They're like, do you know what? Like turn it into a cortado, and then next thing you know, it's like I'm just drinking straight up black.
Once
coffee.
They're drinking cortados, that's a good sign.
It is a good sign.
That's a really good sign. They're focusing more on the coffee than the milk, right?
Yeah, that's how my coffee evolution was. I remember I was so like into the idea of coffee as a teenager because I remember seeing pictures of when like latte art was becoming a big deal.
Okay.
And I remember being like 16 and being like seeing photos of latte art, and I would tell people, I'm like, how do I find like a coffee shop that makes the leaf in the coffee? Right. I used to literally say that. I used to be like the leaf. Like how do I find the place with the leaf? And then I remember I found I went to this coffee shop for the first time. It was in San Diego. I don't even remember what it's called. But I found out that they did like the design in the lattes, and I was like, yes. And it's funny because I still got like a caramel latte. Sure. I got some like caramel latte, and I was like, this is so good. And I was like, I'm finally into like artistic coffee, you know. But it is funny the evolution that people kind of go on of like tasting good coffee, like actually being like, no, like you can actually have coffee that is not good with milk, like. Black alone is so good.
Well, I think, you know, when we were serving the coffee, we were like, hey, like we have creamer and sugar now, but people were like, you know, because this is something that you put all this work into, or that like it seems elevated somehow, I'm going to try it black first. Like I've never had a black cup of coffee. So people were actually like, okay, like if this is something that's supposed to be tasted pure, and okay, you can add milk to flavor, of course, like I'm not going to judge you for it, but people were sort of like trying to turn pretty quickly into like, oh wow, like I can enjoy this black, or if it's different black than I would have thought.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, we got to judge people who put milk in. Well, sure. I'm just kidding. I'm like, yeah, the listeners of this, if you add milk to your coffee, just stop listening because we don't want you here. I'm just kidding. Yeah, of course. No, I'm not that pretentious. I have worked with people like that though, who like will, if you ask for sugar added or like milk added to your coffee, I've literally worked with these people before, and they're like, I'm just not very confrontational, so I wouldn't do this. But I've had people I've worked with be like, really? And I always feel so awkward.
Were they the roaster? Like, were they the person that was?
They weren't the roaster, no, but they were like people that you can tell like really, really care. I really care about coffee too. I really care about the quality. I really would prefer if you just like had it black or whatever, but I never like judge people for being like, yeah, can they add whole milk to this?
I see both sides. I understand every industry needs its passionate people, and the people that are obsessed with precision and quality, and that are literally like it's all consuming, right? I understand there's always room for those people. We need them. And obviously not to a failure where you're like discouraging people from enjoying something that they like, right? Yeah. But yeah, a lot of work can go into curating something that you're trying to express a flavor profile. You put a lot of work into a roasting profile. You put work into the sourcing of the coffee. It's supposed to taste a certain way, you know, and that's fine.
Yeah,
but, no, totally. Anyway, yeah, of course.
There was something I want to talk about. Yeah, that a little like segue from coffee to just life stuff.
Life, yeah.
Okay, so as I said at like the beginning of the episode, you're just like a complicated person. You're an interesting guy. Because obviously like I've gotten to know Stephan through working in coffee and just conversations across the bar. So first, like I found out that he like had his own coffee company, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. You know, that's because how old are you?
I'm 28.
28,
almost 29.
Man. That's crazy. Yeah. So I found out he had a coffee company. I was like, whoa, that's very like no big deal, you know. And then I remember we followed each other on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I just started seeing posts of you like in the most random places.
Sure.
And like I was just kind of like, where is this guy like? I guess he just likes to travel, you know, whatever. Like, cool. And then I remember you posted on your story a photo from like a cockpit.
Right.
And I was like, and you're like, I think you even wrote like flying. And then I automatically, like my head went to like, oh, like you have like maybe you're on a small plane or, you know, like one of those like little private plane things.
Sure.
So then I was like, oh, next time I see him, I'll like kind of ask him about it. And then I see you, and I was like, oh, you fly? Like, you're a pilot? And you're like, yeah. And then I was like, what do you fly for? And you're like an airline. And I was like, what?
True story. Yeah, man.
I was like, what? So not only do you have like a coffee company, but you fly. Are you allowed to talk about that?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
100%. Yeah, I fly for an airline.
Yeah.
I am an airline pilot, just like all the other ones.
And just like all the other ones.
And yeah, I fly to LaGuardia. That's my base.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm a LaGuardia-based dude. And yeah, man, I've been flying for them almost 2 years at the actual airline. I was flying a bunch of small planes before that. You know, it takes a lot of time to accumulate experience to get qualified, and it's
to do like commercial flights.
Yeah, it's like getting your PhD, or as far as timing, 4 years of almost being like an apprentice.
Yeah,
like I would say
that's crazy.
Of just accumulating logging experience in the industry, and there's a variety of reasons for that, obviously.
Yeah.
And then so I started working for the airline in February, whatever, it was 2022, almost 2 years.
That's crazy.
And we do regional flying for Delta, American, United. So it's not main Delta, but it is the regional aircraft, and we're 76 passengers.
Wait, so you said you fly for?
I fly for all three carriers.
It's Delta,
American, United,
and United.
Yeah, so it's a regional subsidiary of, I won't say the name of the company, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a regional subsidiary of those three, and they all own part of the company, and we do we fulfill essentially work for them.
That's so
For
crazy.
certain city pairs. A lot of DC flying, a lot of Boston flying, and a lot of Canada flying and stuff like that. So
that's so crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I remember being so like weirded out because I was like, okay, you have a coffee company, you're a pilot for like commercial airlines, and then I don't know, and then you're like what, 28? You said
28. Yeah, I was 27.
I was like, what a trip, dude! Like, what a trip. How do you even like manage the two? Like,
I don't know, dude. It's weird, actually. I feel like I don't do enough.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah. I actually don't feel like I do a lot, to be honest. Like I still have time to go on my runs. I ran a marathon last year.
Hey, okay.
And I was training for that. It took time to train for that.
Nice.
I still have time to focus on my photography.
Yeah, that was something else I wanted to bring up. Yeah,
for sure. I do travel on my free time.
Yeah.
I still spend a lot of time with my family.
Yeah.
You know. So I mean, despite multiple careers, like some people would say.
Yeah.
I find myself floating around and just pursuing passion. I mean, I think what else are you doing with life?
Yeah,
if you're not trying to pursue your passion, I don't know why you're alive, you know?
Yeah. That's crazy. Wow.
But the flying's cool. You know, it kind of doesn't feel like a job, to be honest.
Really?
You know, because it's a very stable job. You know, you go there, you kind of know what you're getting into as far as like the regimentedness of it. We're so well trained. We go to training every 6 months.
Dude, that's good to know.
Training.
That is good to know.
I mean, the
I'm
training never
scared
ends.
of flying.
And we actually do we have courses that we take like every 3 months about the aircraft and the procedures. I mean, we're constantly just in our heads are in books for training and proficiency.
Is it the same for people who've been doing it for years and stuff?
It's the standard across.
Really?
100%.
Wow.
If anything, it's better for the people that have been doing it longer because they get really complacent. You know, see the same thing every single day, fly to the same places every single day.
Yeah.
And you actually become like a drone almost. Like you have to be very current with potential issues. So it's actually worse the older you get because you're so used to normalcy.
I feel like now every time I get on a plane, I'm going to be like...
Are they young pilots?
yeah. I'm going to start like looking out for the pilots. It's going to be like, oh, it's an old guy.
Everybody wants the old guys.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I normally want the old guys too. I don't know what it is.
There's something... I will say, sorry to interrupt, but there is something about the obvious experience that comes with being in the industry forever. I mean, that stands alone. The experience does stand alone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly does.
That makes sense. Whenever I see an old person, I'm for sure like, all right, like at least
they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm nervous to fly, but at least they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I no hate on you or anything, but when I see a young guy, I'm always like, dude, this guy's like 1 month in.
Right.
What if he just doesn't know?
I know. No, and it's I get it. I mean, it wasn't even that recently when I had an elderly woman walk up after the flight. I was standing at the flight deck door, waving people away, and she's like, "Excuse me." She's like, "Are you the pilot?" And of course, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sitting here in my uniform." I was like, "Yeah." She's like, she grabs me.
You're too handsome.
She grabs me by the hand, and she goes, she was the nicest lady. She's like, "Are you even 18?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
that's hilarious.
add 10 years, but yeah.
You should have been like, "No."
Yeah, The captain was like, yeah, it's bring your son to work day.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. How'd I do? My first day. Imagine. Dude,
Yeah.
I feel like if I was a pilot, I would be messing with people all the time. I mean, like, even like working in coffee, I'm nowhere near the same. I don't know why I made that comparison.
Well, you work,
but
so
like,
there's some comparison.
But
obviously.
like, what I'm trying to say is like, I mess with people way too often. And so like, Matt knows whenever we work together today actually. And whenever we work and customers just say interesting things, they just say silly things, and we are no strangers to just kind of like, we're not bullies, like we're not gonna, but we do mess with them a little bit. Like,
well, I would hope you would enjoy the interactions you have with people.
And for the most part, like people react well. There's only sometimes where people seem a little offended. I think there was like this one time, it wasn't even, I think I made like the classic joke. So for example, like, you know, this is common for baristas. Someone comes up and they're like, oh, can I get some water or something like that? And you're like, yeah, $5. And they're like, really? And you're like, I'm just kidding. It's like a pretty common joke with baristas. But, you know, I do that to people occasionally and they kind of like laugh. Yeah. And, hey, Joel, please be quiet, man. I'm just kidding. Occasionally I do that to people and they'll laugh. And then every once in a while you'll have someone who's just like
a New Yorker comes in. They're
just like, they don't find it funny at all. So all that to say, I feel like if I was a pilot, I'd just be like, yeah, dude, first day, like, wish me luck. You know, it'd be so messed up.
We enjoy our job, and a lot of times we fly with the crew, the four of us. We're all great. You know, get along well, good people. Occasionally, you know, you don't really care so much about the people you're flying with, but obviously the professionalism and the job and the duties, that's always coming first. Safety of everything is safe. You know, nothing compromises safety.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a profession at the end of the day.
Yeah, completely.
But we do enjoy. Sometimes we do have fun.
Yeah,
and enjoy the job.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. How I've heard that like turbulence isn't really that dangerous for flying. Is that true?
It is completely true.
Okay.
It is. The airplane really they're so over designed that they really can't break. That's kind of how I always tell people that. Yeah. You know, the aircraft's not going to break from moving around in the air. Yeah. You know, it's designed to be in the air. And it's designed to bend, right? You know, those are meant. It's meant to move around the wing and everything. So
cool. Because I've always heard that, but you know, when you're on a flight and it's just getting like skippy and just kind of like not fun, it just like, and it gets aggressive and all that. I'm just like, dang, dude, this is it. This is
not today, no.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, flying, I think like. The scariest parts is obviously taking off. Yeah. Landing, I'm not really that scared of. Sure. Weirdly enough, I love landing. I'm like, we're here. Right. Taking off for me is scary, and then like obviously like during the flight, whenever like you hear random noises and like stuff, I'm just always like, ooh, I don't like that. Yeah. But actually, one time I was flying. I was flying to California, but I had a flight from LaGuardia to DC, just like an hour flight. Sure. And then that was a layover. Then whatever. That flight was terrible. Okay. It was so shaky the whole time. And you were flying. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I could have been because I do LaGuardia DC all the time.
It was a while ago. That would be so funny. But the plane, as we're getting closer to landing, the plane is just like...
Sure, real windy maybe.
Just like back and forth. And I remember thinking like, dude, this is it. And there was like an old lady next to me crying. She's just like, she's holding on and she's just crying. And I was like, dude, if she's losing it, then I started losing it. Right. And then I just kind of started freaking out. But
we do talk to people who have flight anxiety. Oh, really? Try to calm them down. Certainly, yeah. I mean, anyone's welcome to come up and talk to us or asked to talk to. Not during the flight, but obviously before we actually fly. We talk to people all the time.
Yeah, because I just found out. So my friend just became a flight attendant, and I found out like a few of the regulations that they have. Just like, I don't know if I'm allowed to share that, but like either how the door is always locked and it can only be opened from the inside. Right. Something like
Precisely,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I found out all this flight stuff. But it's funny, do you know, because like all my friends who are either flight attendants or like work in flying, I always ask them so many questions.
I know, it happens all the time.
Because I'm always like, does it drive you crazy? Because I'm always like, let me like pour out all my like flight trauma to you and like reassure me that I'm going to be okay next time.
No, it's welcome. I mean, honestly, like when I meet people and I usually am not the one telling them that I'm a pilot. Somebody usually introduces me like, oh yeah, he's a pilot. I'm like, okay, here we go. And again, that's not dreadful.
You don't introduce yourself as a pilot?
Not necessarily, no.
Dude, I'm so full of myself.
Yeah.
I would fully just wave that around. I would literally be working a shift and I'd be like, hey guys, by the way, I fly planes.
That's the cliche attitude. A lot of pilots, like, how do you know there's a pilot in the room? They told you. Like, it's sort of like, But yeah, to me, again, it's just a career. I'd rather talk about coffee and photography or traveling and being Greek or whatever. You know, I like talking to people, and you know, it doesn't have to involve aviation. In fact, I actually really don't have a lot of like aviation friends. It's just not really something that I do outside of flying. That doesn't really extend beyond work to me. You know.
So interesting. So tell me a little bit about, also drink some of your coffee. You haven't drank.
No, dude, I'm all
you
good.
Finished it?
Yeah, man. I'm a quick coffee drinker.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah, dude.
I thought I was I literally haven't seen you. I've been watching you this whole time. I feel like I haven't seen you drink at all, man. That's crazy. I guess I'm the last one. Yeah. I love how I was so confident in that too. I was just like, dude, drink your coffee. I'm the only one. What was I going to say? Okay, so obviously you're a pilot. You have a coffee company, and you also are really into film. Is this the main camera you shoot on right here?
Yeah, this is the main camera I shoot with right now.
What is this?
This is a Leica MA. It's one of their newer models.
Nice.
It's a fully mechanical camera. There's no electronics in it at all. And to me, you know, you have to meter with your eye and understand the exposure and the aperture and the shutter and everything. And it's a completely manual experience. So there's no indication of whether a picture is going to be completely black or completely white, right? Too much or too little light. So, yeah, you can use a light meter, obviously, like a handheld meter to detect how much light you're getting. Which, you can have on your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like the classic Sunny 16 rule. I don't want to get too technical with photography, but that's sort of like metering with the eye based on exposure, sensitivity, and aperture setting and all the rest. And you can kind of play with light and the perception of what you're seeing. It's super sunny out, and then if it's really shady, right? You just change what you're doing with the aperture. And that just adds like an element of question and a little bit more challenging to use, to execute photography that way. And it's an old school way of doing it, really. Like, you go back 50, 60, 70 years, they didn't really have light meters and things like that. And guys were running around in World War II snapping photos without light meters. I mean, people knew how to take photos, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I walk around Manhattan or New York City or any of the cities I travel to. I always have my camera with me.
So sick.
And just capturing light.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're doing with the camera.
That's awesome. Matt, have you ever shot one of these cameras? It's a Leica. What is it?
Leica. Yeah.
Leica?
Yeah, it's a rangefinder. So they're kind of known for being real compact cameras. They're kind of like they're very well designed.
You have an Instagram for?
I do have a photography Instagram as well.
Do you want to pull that up? His photography Instagram.
Yeah. I tend to do color black and white. I mean, I bounce back and forth. I've been more into black and white recently because I can develop it myself in my apartment.
Yeah. Real quick, what's your
SCV.PIC? My initials and then .pic instead of like .jpeg,
Like it.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Right. I don't know if anyone else sees that, but that's kind of where it came from.
That's sick. So you can I see one of your phones? I want to see it real quick. Sick. Yeah, these are sick, dude.
Yeah, it's, again, it's just what I see, pressing the shutter and then developing it, trying to get the character out of the film that I like, and changing films and trying different. And then the travel. I mean, going to Greece or all the variety of countries that I get to, I've been to, taking photos.
What do you shoot on? Like what film?
So I changed around a lot. A lot of the black and white I do is either Ilford HP5 or Kodak TX 100 or 400, the different speeds. But the black and white's either Kodak or Kodak T-Max or TX, and
That's
then
sick.
or Tri-X.
That's cool.
And then the Ilford stuff, which is Ilford's really iconic, and they've not really changed their chemistry much over like the last 30, 40 years, so it's a little more vintage than like the modern Kodak stuff, which is cool. Again, whatever kind of vibe you're kind of go after.
Yeah.
The color stuff, it varies. I do a lot of slide film, which is like a color positive image. It's like a film you could project. You could like put in a projector.
Oh, cool.
Instead of being like a color negative film.
Yeah.
Which it's
that's
Kodak.
sick. Do you only have this camera, or do you shoot on a few different?
No, so I have this camera. That's a 35 millimeter camera, and then I have a full or medium format camera, Hasselblad. For those who know cameras, 500 series. And it's a square, so it takes a square photo, which is real neat. Yeah, it's like an album cover, kind of one way to look at it.
That's sick. Do you, with film, like your film photography stuff, do you do that more just kind of for fun as a hobby, or do you ever get like jobs doing it, or do you kind of like I don't know?
It's definitely a hobby. I have done events that I've agreed to. Not like an engagement or something, but I've done like, you know, like New York Fashion Week. My sister had an event for some of the clothing she imports at one of the Greek places that they had hosted this event for her, and you know, it was a small event, but they had like a runway and everything, and I went there and kind of did, you know, flash photography with my camera, the film camera, and I shot that for her. I was more than happy to do it. So I'll do events like that. I did another event for a girl who writes a blog, and she had an artist in town. She's Greek, and so we went down to like Lower East Side, Soho, did some street photography for her art stuff, and so I'll do stuff like that. Again, it's kind of highly curated. If somebody asks me, hey, like I need a headshot, well, okay, sure, but it's more that, and then I will sell prints, select prints in my sister's store on her website.
I need to get some of your prints. I'm not just saying that because you're
dude.
We're on the
and
podcast.
Friends of mine have they've been like, I want a print of this picture. I'm like, you got it, man. Like, absolutely,
totally.
For sure.
That's awesome. I love film photography so much. I don't have a camera, but I had one for a while. I just had like a little like random ones that I got from like a thrift store and stuff. Yeah. But I do love film photography so much. I've been like, I'm at that point right now where I'm like debating like, what?
You got one hung up on your wall.
Yeah,
I did see
that one's broken.
The Minolta,
that's my poser camera. It used to work. I had film developed off that camera, but yeah, that one doesn't really work anymore. I got to get it fixed. But it's funny. I saw Joel pointing. I was like, "What are you pointing at?"
Right.
At first, I thought he was gonna say there's like a spider or something. I was like, "Oh no!" first time I have you on. But anyways, I would love to. I'm kind of at that point where I was trying to say is like I'm like debating between a few different cameras. Okay. And I would love a medium format. They're a little pricey.
Medium format's more expensive to shoot it as well, because you're on like, you know, less shots per roll and all that, right? Per picture, it's like $1 a picture sometimes, is that more?
Do you know what I love about film though? It's like for example, you just go into the city, you take like random photos of like people, stuff happening. Yeah. That's like the best part about film, because I feel like you just take photos of the most ordinary things of life and it looks cool. Like I've literally seen like film photographers that I follow just take photos of like trash cans and like pigeons, and I'm like, that's so sick. It looks I'm just like, that's beautiful, you know. And you're like, wow, this is awesome. And I think that's what I love about film photography is like, obviously it still takes like skill. I'm not saying you can just like take a photo, but it is pretty sick that you can like take photos of things that are just very just like ordinary day-to-day things, and like someone getting off a bus, or like literally a park, or you know, whatever it be, like I don't know, random crap happening. It always looks very cool.
It's whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
You know, but the medium, like you're saying, exactly as you're saying, the medium provides like this layer of life to the photo. Yeah. It's not clinical. It doesn't seem like it's out of a textbook, right? It's like it's like tangible. Like there's something real about it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. There's some, and it's also, I think, a little bit of that like old-fashioned-y feel, you know, of kind of like, you know, that same feeling you have when you use cash. Right. You're like, yeah, I still, you know,
you
it's
can
still
touch it.
Yeah. I think with film, it's kind of like everything's digital. You take photos on your iPhone all the time. Right. And so there is something kind of special about like using up a full roll, going to get it developed, and waiting. And you're just like, you know, that feeling when you're waiting to get your film back, and you're just oh, I hope it turns out good. I don't know. There's something so cool about that experience. And then even like, so like recently we shot video on a Super 8, you know, using film. Sure. For the promo for this, for the announcing the podcast.
It looks fantastic. I knew exactly, and immediately it was film.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah. And I was so hyped. I've wanted to shoot on Super 8 for a while, and so Matt, who's actually in the room right now, Matt Morales, he shot on Super 8. I think, what did you use? Kodak film?
Yeah, it was Kodak 250T.
Kodak 250T, yeah. And it just looked beautiful. And then he shot some other stuff apart from, you know, that promo that we did on film, and it just looks so clean. I just love the. But there's something so rewarding and special about that. So after we shot that promo for 8 ounce, we went to a what's it called, in Bay Ridge, was it? What? Where we got the film developed.
Oh, in
Ridgewood.
Okay.
But even that experience, just going there, dropping it off, and then like Negative Land, yeah. Okay. Negative Land.
Nice.
And just like waiting to get it back. I would text him like every day. I was like, did you hear anything yet? Because they did tell us it'll probably take a week.
Sure.
And then finally he texted me, and I was in Rhode Island at the time. And he's like, hey, they contacted me. I was like, yes.
Nice.
And then once I finally saw it, I was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's rewarding. It's delayed gratification, even, I guess, maybe a little bit, with like waiting to see that product if it came out, right? Was it developed properly? Did you expose it properly? Whatever. And then you have something.
Because there's not a lot of settings on that one, is there? Right, the Super 8. It's kind of just like a point and shoot one. Because there's other Super 8 Canons that are a little bit more.
Yeah, they made like a lot. I mean, but Super 8 was designed to be the point and shoot of video film.
Yeah.
Point and shoot. Yeah.
Point and shoot.
They made like audio incorporation later on, but for the most part, it is pretty just like it's like a point and shoot camera. It's just a set aperture, and you just like kind of hope that your film stock is gonna match the lighting.
Right.
Yeah, and luckily it turned out like so cool.
Well, that's where the artist comes in, right? You need what film stock to get.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I think with film too, I would say that like our generation, I think we're all millennials, and we have like this. We're so used to getting things immediately.
Yeah.
And then like the patience of
Yep.
waiting and putting a little extra work into something that you're gonna see a little bit later.
Yeah.
It adds this chase to like, the reward of creating something. So.
Yeah, and I think people are also really into the look of it too, which is kind of funny. Sure. It also kind of creates another issue of like people trying to like replicate the film look just through like Photoshop and VSCO and filters and stuff like that, which like I don't know. That's a whole other.
It is a whole other thing.
But like you can tell like people are really into the look of it, and like right now it's obviously it's funny because it is really in. It's very in. It's very big, but it's also like it still is really cool no matter what. I'm not really one of those people who's like, oh, everyone's into film, so I'm like not into it anymore. I definitely like love when I see my friends post like film photos and stuff like that.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah,
get yourself a camera.
I know, dude. I know. Dude, maybe I'll just steal one of yours.
Maybe.
But yeah, dude. So, dude, I love this coffee. This is
Appreciate
great. Thank you for bringing this, man.
Absolutely.
I'm stoked on this. I'm about to finish my last episode. So the way the show works is when we're done with our coffees, the episode's over. So before we end the episode, what do you have coming up? Like, what's next for you? Like with Apollo or whatever, like what's what are some things that are happening?
Yeah, we're expanding. We're always looking for places to sell the coffee just as a bagged coffee. We just got an order for people in Carmel by the Sea, if you know the San Francisco area, or obviously California. Yeah, there's some places in California that bought the coffee. Seattle, there's coffee. So we do wholesale it out anywhere. So we're expanding on shelves, and we're looking at some distribution in New York City as well.
Sick, dude.
So, and then expanding the menu. As we sell, we replenish. Some of this coffee will be on the menu for a while. Some of it will be replaced with other coffees that again seasonally we have access to, and we're constantly trying new coffee as well. We had a cupping. I don't know. It was like 8 days ago. We did a cupping. There's some exciting, more Ethiopian stuff that's out there, and Africa obviously it's like the pinnacle of a lot of the coffee producing. So. A lot of good coffee comes out of there, which is exciting, but can't sleep on South America either. So.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm going to end this like a hot ones? I'm like, this camera. Tell the world what's going on. Follow Stephan on Instagram. Follow Rise with Apollo. Buy some of their coffee. Great stuff. And, dude, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is
I'll
so
honestly
cool.
probably have you on again.
Cool.
This isn't really one of those things where I'm going to, let's take a one-timer. Because I know there's definitely more stuff we could talk about. But,
sure.
Dude, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Dude,
congrats.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys. Later.